She dropped the fork when she saw me. It clattered against the ceramic plate, bounced once, and landed in a pool of mashed potatoes. Everyone at the table turned to look at her, and then slowly turned to look at me, standing at the entrance with a bottle of cheap red wine and a pulse that felt like it was punching through my ribs. I wasn't supposed to be there. At least, not according to her. But Marcy invited me. Said it was just a casual dinner with some old friends, nothing fancy. 6 people, including me. I didn't know Sienna would be one of them. She clearly didn't know I'd be there either. She blinked 3 times in a row. A tic she always had when she was nervous. She was wearing the black velvet dress I once found crumpled in the laundry with a button missing. The same one she wore the night she told me, calmly and coldly, "You're not a man, Ellis. You're just here." That phrase stuck to me like mold in my chest. She said it like a fact. Like she was reciting the time or the weather. No yelling. No crying. Just those words, a shrug, and then silence. That was months ago. And now, here she was, looking startled, sitting next to some guy with a wrist tattoo and slicked hair, in the exact seat Marcy used to save for me during game nights. Her wine glass was half full. Her phone was face down on the table. Her laugh had stopped mid-breath the second I walked in. I smiled. Not because I wanted to, but because it was the only thing I could do to stop myself from collapsing. "Ellis," Marcy said, too brightly. "Come in. You made it." I nodded. My legs moved on autopilot. The guy next to Sienna, Drew? Dax? Something with a D, stuck out his hand, trying to play it cool. I shook it like he hadn't just walked into the remains of a fire I was still standing in. The dinner went on. Plates passed. Laughter resumed. Conversations twisted around new jobs, streaming shows, local gossip. I sat there, chewing too slow, drinking too fast, and watching Sienna laugh at all the right moments while avoiding eye contact with me like I was radioactive. But the real moment, the one I wasn't ready for, didn't come until dessert. And it wasn't what she said that shook the room. It was what I brought with me. Because I didn't come empty-handed. And that velvet dress she wore? It had more history than she wanted anyone at that table to know. Sienna tried to act normal the rest of the evening, but she was unraveling. I saw it. Every time someone asked her a question, her answers got shorter. Her laugh was off-tempo. She even knocked over her water glass at one point and blamed it on the table being uneven. It wasn't. I remembered that table. Marcy's husband built it himself, and I helped him level the legs during one of their backyard barbecues, back when Sienna used to lean her head on my shoulder like I was the safest place in the world. But now, she sat across from me like she was trapped in a snow globe slowly filling with dread. And I just kept sipping my wine, nodding along to conversations about office politics and new restaurants and someone's recent hot air balloon ride over the desert. My mind wasn't in the room anymore. It was in the envelope in my coat pocket. I had brought it for closure, for myself, not to start a scene. But the second I saw her walk in, the dress, the smug look she wore until she noticed me, it shifted something in my gut. I had carried that envelope with me for weeks, always thinking maybe I'd leave it in her mailbox, or mail it anonymously. But life doesn't give you clean chances. It gives you moments you either take or regret forever. Dessert was a blueberry crumble with whipped cream. Marcy always made too much. People were laughing about how they'd need to unbutton their jeans after dinner. And then, in the quiet lull between the clinking of forks and the start of a new conversation, I reached into my coat. Before I forget, I said lightly, like I was offering someone a recipe or an invitation, "Sienna, I have something of yours." She looked up, and her expression froze. I held the envelope out across the table. Her hands didn't move at first. Then, slowly, she took it. There were no markings on the front. Just her name. But she knew what it was. She had to. She looked at it like it might explode. Her fingers hovered over the flap, then pulled back. She slipped it into her purse without opening it. "What's that?" asked Drew, or Dan, or whoever he was. "Nothing," she replied quickly, voice too sharp, too clipped. "Something I found while cleaning out the old apartment," I said. Didn't feel right to throw it away. Her eyes met mine for the first time all night. She knew exactly what I meant. Inside the envelope were 4 things. 1. A receipt from a hotel just 20 minutes away from our house, dated a week before she left me. 2. A photo, grainy, black and white, but enough. Her, in the lobby, holding hands with someone who wasn't me. Same velvet dress. 3. A handwritten note I found tucked behind our bedroom dresser, addressed to Jay. And 4. A letter from me. Not angry. Just honest. Too honest. I'd written it the night I realized she'd already left me emotionally months before she actually walked out the door. The table was quiet now. No more crumble. No more laughter. Ellis, she started, her voice low and defensive. This isn't the time. No, I said. You're probably right. But I didn't get a time. You just left. I wasn't raising my voice. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. And maybe that scared her more than if I had. Drew stood up, awkward and unsure, like he was waiting for someone to tell him what to do. I could see the question forming on his face. Who's Jay? Why does your ex have evidence in a sealed envelope? Marcy looked between us like she'd accidentally invited two people from a canceled reality show into her peaceful suburban home. But I wasn't done. Not yet. By the way, I added as I stood, picking up my coat. Thanks for still wearing the dress. It made it easier to be sure. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. I walked out the door, my heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the silence behind me. The truth was in her hands now. What she did with it next would say more than anything she'd ever said to my face. And I was just beginning to realize that maybe I wasn't the weak one after all. I didn't go home right away. I just drove. No destination, no music. Just the sound of tires against the road and that ringing silence in my ears, the kind that shows up when your body's still vibrating from something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. The city lights turned into empty highways. I think I circled the same part of town 3 times. Eventually, I pulled over at some forgotten gas station with a flickering sign and sat there, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. Was I proud of what I did? I don't know. Maybe a little. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table or beg her to explain herself. I just handed her the truth and left her to choke on it. That was new for me. Usually I'm the one left blinking, stunned, apologizing for things I didn't even do. I stayed in my car until the sun came up, then went home and collapsed on the couch still wearing my jacket. No dreams. Just a thick, empty kind of sleep that felt more like shutting down than resting. I figured that was the end of it. But I underestimated her. The first sign was a knock at my door the next afternoon. I didn't check the peephole. I just opened it, and there she was. Sienna. Still in the velvet dress. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She held the envelope in one hand, like she was returning something broken. You had no right, she said. Good morning to you too, I mumbled, already feeling my stomach tighten. You humiliated me. You ambushed me. You lied to me for months. Her mouth twitched, like she couldn't decide if she wanted to scream or cry. You're pathetic, Ellis. You always were. Digging through old drawers like some creepy little drawer. I cut in. You left that letter stuck behind our dresser, Sienna. You don't hide love notes by accident. She took a step inside without asking. My body moved back automatically. She always knew how to push her way in. She'd done it with everything, decisions, finances, even friendships. She didn't discuss things. She decided them, then waited for you to catch up. And if you hesitated, you were labeled weak. I followed her into the living room. She tossed the envelope on the coffee table like it was radioactive. You don't even know who he is. I raised an eyebrow. You mean Jay? She flinched. Bingo. Maybe not, I said, slowly, but he sure knew you. That letter was pretty, graphic. Her cheeks flushed. You think this makes you strong? Airing our business in front of people who barely know us? At a dinner party? No, I replied, but I think it finally made you small. And that's the part you can't handle. She stared at me. Not angry. Not wounded. Just confused. Like she was looking at someone she didn't recognize. And maybe she was. You're not the man I married, she said quietly. No, I said. I'm not. He died sometime between the 3rd missed anniversary and the 2nd burner phone bill. That one hit. She backed up a step, looked toward the door. This isn't over, she hissed. I laughed under my breath. It's been over. You just didn't notice. She left without another word, slamming the door so hard it rattled the glass. But even after the noise faded, I just stood there, frozen, because part of me had wanted her to cry, to say sorry, to ask me how I knew. Something. Anything that proved she had even a trace of guilt. But there was nothing. Just anger that I exposed her in front of an audience that mattered to her. And I knew it wasn't the last I'd hear from her. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was who would show up at my door next. And what he would reveal. It was 2 days later when someone knocked again. Same time in the afternoon. Same hollow thud on the door. I was halfway through microwaving leftover spaghetti, still in the same hoodie I'd slept in, when I opened it and froze. The man standing on my porch looked like he walked out of a grooming commercial. Tailored navy blazer, no tie, crisp white shirt, watch that probably cost more than my car, and this effortless confidence that made me immediately feel like I should apologize for breathing. "Ellis?" he asked, polite but cautious. "Yeah," I said, blinking. He extended a hand. "I'm Jay." At first, it didn't register. My brain was too busy catching up with his cologne and polished shoes and perfect posture. Then I blinked again, and the weight of that single letter slammed into my chest. J. The letter behind the dresser. The one Sienna wrote. To him. I didn't shake his hand. I just stared. He shifted a little, dropped his arm. "I know this is strange, but can I come in for a second? Please." "No," I said instinctively, my grip tightening around the edge of the door. He nodded, as if he expected that. "Fair. I wouldn't want me inside either." He stepped back slightly, gave me space. Look," he said. I suddenly tired. "She didn't tell me she was married. I found out 3 weeks in. She said you were separated. I never would have if I'd known." "You're telling me you didn't know?" I interrupted, finally finding my voice. "She wore a ring to sleep. I have pictures." His jaw clenched. "She told me she wore it because you wouldn't let her take it off yet. Said you were controlling. That you were watching her." I actually laughed. A short, broken thing that caught in my throat. "Of course she did. I believed her," he said quietly. "That's on me. I know that now. But when you handed her that envelope the other night, I saw her face. She wasn't embarrassed. She was afraid." I frowned. "Afraid of what?" He looked around, then leaned slightly forward. "Of what you might have found. Because there's more. Stuff I only found out last week, after I tried to end it." I opened the door a little wider, enough to make it clear I was listening now. Not trusting, but curious. He didn't hesitate. "She was seeing another guy. Not me. Not just you. Someone else. At the same time." She got sloppy, left her work tablet open. There were messages. Pictures. Conversations about both of us. She called you the husband with soft hands. She called me the backup with abs. My chest burned. Not from heartbreak. That was already numb. This was something different. A sickness. A spiraling descent into just how deep I had let myself fall for someone who saw love like a buffet line. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Because I don't want to be her secret anymore. And because I'm guessing you don't either." I didn't respond. He handed me a flash drive. "Everything's on here." I saved it all, just in case she tried to turn it around on me. I took it, my fingers brushing his. Cold plastic, heavier than it looked. "She's not who you think she is, Ellis. And if I were you, I'd brace for whatever's coming next." With that, he turned and walked off the porch, leaving me standing there with a blinking microwave and 1,000 questions crashing through my skull. I locked the door, sat on the couch, and stared at the flash drive for a long time. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I also knew I would. And what I found inside, it didn't just shatter the last pieces of who I was. It gave me the one thing I never expected: leverage. I didn't plug the flash drive in right away. I just let it sit there on the coffee table like it was radioactive. I think I stared at it for nearly 2 hours. It was so small, just a little silver rectangle, but somehow it carried the weight of an anvil. My stomach twisted every time I looked at it. I already knew Sienna cheated. I already knew she lied. What else could possibly be on there that would make this any worse? Turns out, I had no idea just how deep the rot went. I finally loaded it up that night, slid it into the side of my old laptop, heard the faint click, and waited while the folder opened. There were 6 files, each labeled with dates and short titles: the rooftop, voice note, HR call, hotel check-in, chat screenshot, and one simply titled insurance. I opened the chat screenshot first. It was between Sienna and a contact saved as no names. The conversation started casual enough, flirty even, but then it turned into something else. Something colder. Calculated. She said things like, "He still thinks we're just hitting a rough patch. Honestly, I could push him into a breakdown, and he'd still make me tea. I'll ride this out until I can collect what's mine." Then a line that felt like it had been written just to rip me apart. "Once the divorce is final, I get half. He'll sign anything as long as I smile." I shut the laptop so fast it nearly cracked. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or throw up. Or both. The image of her, sitting across from me at dinner all those months ago, telling me I wasn't a man, suddenly looked different. Strategic. Like she was rehearsing it for the moment she'd flip the script in court. I opened the laptop again. This time, I played the audio file voice note. Her voice came through, distant but clear. She was on the phone, talking to someone I didn't recognize. If I can just keep him in the apartment through next month, I'll qualify as the primary resident. That locks me into the lease and keeps the security deposit. Then I ghost. Simple. Simple. It was all a plan. A checklist. I wasn't even a person to her. I was a stepping stone. A soft-hearted stepping stone who folded laundry, paid the electric bill on time, and never raised his voice. By the time I got to the HR call file, I was numb. It was a recording of a Zoom call between her and someone in HR at her company. Apparently, she'd filed a complaint about someone creating a hostile work environment. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, asking for clarification. Sienna, cool as ever, explained that a certain male colleague, Jay, had been pushing boundaries. She made it sound like he was obsessed with her. Aggressive. Dangerous. Except Jay, he was the man who came to my door. The man who gave me all of this. She hadn't just lied about me. She'd lied about him too. Manipulated everyone around her. Painted herself as the victim in a story she wrote backwards. Then I opened insurance. It was a PDF. A document that showed she'd recently taken out a renter's policy. But here's the kicker. It didn't just cover her apartment. It also listed contents in my name. Jewelry, electronics, even furniture I bought long before we ever met. Things she hadn't even moved yet. She was planning to claim it all. Fraudulently. Through a claim she probably intended to file the day I moved out. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. That night, I sat in the dark with all the lights off, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. My whole life had been turned inside out, and somehow, I was the only one who didn't see it coming. I wasn't just betrayed, I was played. Like a fool. Like a puppet she assumed would never find his strings. But I had them now. Every last one. And as I stared at the flash drive still glowing faintly from the port, I knew exactly what I had to do. The question was, who should I start with? Because revenge wasn't the goal. Exposure was. And Sienna had built a life on illusions. It was time to burn it all down with nothing but the truth. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. The flash drive was still plugged in, blinking in the dark like some kind of silent thread, pulsing a slow rhythm into the living room. I just sat there, hunched on the edge of the couch, phone in hand, every nerve in my body wound tight. I wasn't thinking about vengeance. Not the kind people cheer for in movies. This wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic takedowns. It was something colder, calmer, a quiet war of facts. And I had ammunition. By the time the sun cracked the sky, I had a plan. I started with Marcy. Not because she was close to Sienna. Actually, the opposite. Marcy was neutral territory, a friend to both of us, but with her own moral compass. She hated drama but hated lies even more. I knew if she saw what I had, she wouldn't be able to ignore it. I texted her, "Can we meet? Just us. Need to show you something." She replied in 5 minutes. "Sure. Coffee at Hallbrook Cafe? Noon? Perfect." I brought my laptop, not the flash drive itself. I wasn't stupid. I mirrored the files to a private cloud folder, encrypted it, and made 2 backups. I wasn't about to let this vanish with a spilled drink or a clumsy elbow. When I got there, she was already waiting, twirling a straw wrapper between her fingers. She looked up, smiled, then froze. "You look tired," she said, gently. "Yeah," I replied. "Been a week." I opened the laptop without a word, tapped through the folders, and slid it toward her. Her eyes narrowed, but she leaned in and started reading. Watching her face shift was surreal. Curiosity, confusion, disbelief. Then that slow, dawning horror. She didn't say a word until she reached the voice recording. I watched her press play, then cover her mouth halfway through. When it ended, she sat back, stunned. "This isn't real," she whispered. "It's all timestamped," I said. "Metadata's clean. The screenshots, the audio, none of it's doctored." I had a tech guy confirm it. "Ellis, this is huge." She tried to paint me as unstable, I said quietly. And she tried to frame the guy she cheated with as a predator. And she almost got away with it. Marcy looked like she was going to cry. I thought she was just going through something. You know? A crisis. People do crazy stuff when they feel trapped. But this is surgical. That word hit me in the chest. Surgical. She was right. Sienna didn't just want to leave me. She wanted to erase me and walk away with the pieces of my life she found useful. She didn't make emotional decisions. She made calculated moves with an exit strategy. Marcy closed the laptop. What are you going to do? I stared at the table for a long time before answering. I'm going to expose her. To everyone. But not through drama. Not through shouting. I'm going to walk into every room she's built her little empire in and quietly light a match. It started with her job. I knew the name of the HR rep from the recorded call. It was mentioned once during the conversation, Miss Keener. I didn't have to dig far. A quick LinkedIn search, a guest email format, and I sent a short, formal message. Dear Miss Keener, I have information relevant to a false complaint recently filed by an employee named Sienna F. This includes audio recordings, written evidence, and metadata that may prove misconduct. Please advise if you'd like the material forwarded for review. 2 hours later, I got a reply. Yes. Please send immediately. Confidentiality will be maintained. I attached the files. No commentary. Just facts. The system would take care of the rest. Next came the lease. Sienna and I were both still on it. She had told me she was planning to move out but never filed the paperwork. I called the landlord, a guy named Ray who was always gruff but fair. Ellis? Thought you two split. We did. But she's been using the apartment to claim primary residency for insurance fraud. Silence. I can send you documents, Ray. Names. Policy numbers. She's trying to claim property she doesn't own. He let out a long exhale. Send it. I'll deal with it. And Ellis. Yeah. I always liked you more. You're the kind of guy who returns the trash bins to the curb without being asked. That one caught me off guard. I smiled. First time in weeks. The next part? It was harder. I sent a message to her family group chat. Just one line. You deserve to know who Sienna really is. Attached was the folder. With context. With evidence. Nothing mean. Nothing cruel. Just the truth. No reply came for hours. Then her sister texted me privately. Ellis. I don't know what to say. We had no idea. I'm so sorry. She's not who we thought she was. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It wasn't about ruining her life. It was about reclaiming mine. And it was working. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Because when Sienna realized her house of cards was falling, she came back. Not to apologize, but to fight. I should have known she wouldn't go quietly. I thought if I kept it professional, clean, strategic, she'd either retreat or spiral somewhere far away from me. I wasn't trying to destroy her. I just wanted the masks to fall. But Sienna? She didn't know how to lose. She'd built her entire identity around appearing untouchable, unbothered, superior. And now, I'd kicked the floor out from under her. It was 4 days after I sent the files out, late morning, raining hard. I was cleaning out the fridge when the buzzer rang. I knew it was her before I even pressed the intercom. I don't know how. Maybe some part of me could feel her fury through the glass and concrete. I buzzed her in without saying a word. Not out of courage. Just exhaustion. She banged on the door like she owned the place. Same dress coat she wore to fancy office parties, makeup smudged just enough to look unintentional, and those stilettos that clicked like gunshots across my floor as she stormed in uninvited. She didn't look sad. She didn't look heartbroken. She looked furious. Cornered. What did you do? She snapped, throwing her soaked purse onto the coffee table. You know what I did, I said calmly. I didn't stand. I didn't even blink. I just kept my voice level like I was reading a grocery list. They're investigating me at work, she hissed. My email access is suspended. HR won't even look me in the eye. I had to leave a meeting with legal halfway through because they brought up the recording, Ellis. I told the truth, I replied. Something you haven't done in a long time. You self-righteous little worm, she spat, pointing a shaking finger at me. You think you're some noble victim? No. You're a weak, spineless joke who couldn't handle me leaving, so you turned into a petty stalker. I finally stood. Slowly. I didn't follow you. I didn't break into your life. You handed me the rope, Sienna. I just stopped letting you pull it. She stared at me for a long time, jaw tight, breath shallow. Then her voice dropped, cold, deliberate. You've made a huge mistake. You think this is over? It's not. You want to fight dirty, Ellis? Fine. Let's play. She reached into her coat and pulled out a folder. Thick. Labeled. She tossed it onto my dining table like a grenade. I didn't touch it. What is that? Leverage, she said smugly. Let's just say I've kept records too. She turned on her heel and left without another word. Her perfume lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. I stood there, staring at the folder. Every part of me screamed, "Don't open it." But I had to. Slowly, I peeled back the cover and began flipping through. It wasn't what I expected. The first few pages were copies of emails, personal ones. My therapist, my old employer, even a few exchanges with friends where I'd vented, broken down. She'd printed them, highlighted things, out of context quotes, paragraphs where I talked about my depression, my anxiety, my fear of being not enough. Then there were screenshots of our arguments, carefully cropped, manipulated. There were none of her messages, only mine, frustrated replies, emotional outbursts, things that could be twisted into sounding unstable if you didn't know the full story. And finally, a draft, a legal document, a formal claim accusing me of harassment, psychological manipulation, emotional instability. Her narrative? That I'd become obsessive after she left, that I'd fabricated evidence, that I was threatening her professional and personal safety with edited recordings and false accusations. My chest tightened. This wasn't just retaliation. It was insurance. She knew she'd crossed a line, and now she was building a new narrative, one where she was the victim, one where I was the controlling ex who couldn't let go. I sat down hard. The room spun a little, and then I laughed. It was dry, bitter, humorless, but it was real, because this was her final play. If she couldn't silence the truth, she'd smear me until no one knew who to believe. She didn't need to win. She just needed to muddy the waters enough to drown us both. I spent the next 2 hours combing through the folder, matching dates, verifying timestamps, fact-checking every twist she'd written. And as I did, something strange happened. I stopped feeling afraid, because I still had one thing she never counted on. The original files. Not the copies. Not the summaries. The full recordings. The full messages. Context. Sequence. Truth. And I had one more card she hadn't seen yet. Someone she betrayed who had nothing left to lose. Jay. Because while she was busy trying to rewrite history, I was getting ready to put it on record. I spent the next 2 days building a wall of facts. Not rage, not revenge, just undeniable, unaltered evidence. I created a timeline. Every lie, every manipulation, every incident with documentation to back it up. I included the original audio recordings, the chat logs with full context, the screenshots of her conversations unedited. And I layered in her attempt to flip the script on me. Her fake claims, her drafted complaint, her cherry-picked messages. All of it. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I brought it public. Not on social media, not with a dramatic post or a viral video. I met with my lawyer. Quietly. Respectfully. I explained everything, showed every file, and asked one simple question. How do I protect myself without destroying someone else? He read everything in silence. Afterward, he leaned back and gave me the first honest answer I'd heard in months. You already did. By documenting it. This is truth, Ellis, not revenge. He helped me file a preemptive protection request, not against Sienna, but against any legal false claims she might attempt. It wasn't aggressive. It was insurance. And it was enough to put a legal wall between me and her rewritten version of events. It sent a clear message. I wasn't going to be her scapegoat. Not anymore. Jay, the man she tried to frame, agreed to submit a formal witness statement. Turns out he'd already been contacted by HR. He'd saved even more than I had. Chat logs. Audio clips. His own timeline. She never expected him to talk. He was her secret. But now, he was my shield. Sienna's world began to close in on her. HR launched a full investigation. Her job was put on hold. The insurance company opened a fraud case related to the policy she tried to exploit. Her lease was reviewed and terminated by the landlord for breach of contract. Her leverage folder? It didn't hold up against the full versions I had. She tried to push it anyway. Send it to her lawyer. But the truth unraveled fast when everything was compared side by side. And then quiet. For the first time in months, no calls. No knocks. No threats. She vanished from my life like smoke clearing from a room. I heard later from her sister that she left town, moved back in with their parents for space. No one reached out to ask my side of the story. They already knew it. But here's the part one never expected. A few weeks after everything settled, I got a message from Marcy. Just 2 words, come over. I hesitated. Part of me was tired of people. But I went. When I arrived, she opened the door with a warm smile. No judgment. No pity. Just coffee and 2 chairs by her little garden out back. We talked for hours. About nothing at first, weather, old books, weird neighborhood rumors. then about everything. She told me she was proud of me. Said she'd never seen someone handle that kind of betrayal with so much restraint. I almost laughed. I hadn't felt strong through any of it. Just numb. But that night, when I got home, I realized something. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not because I'd won. Not because she'd lost. But because I finally stopped trying to make someone see my worth who was never capable of seeing anyone's but her own. Sienna said I wasn't a man. She was wrong. Being a man isn't about noise or control. It's about clarity. About boundaries. About knowing when to walk away and when to stand your ground. I didn't argue with her when she left. I let her go. But when she tried to rewrite the truth, I didn't whisper. I told the whole story. And now, I'm rebuilding. Small things. Cooking meals that I enjoy. Reading again. Actually laughing without checking if someone else is watching. And maybe, just maybe, love isn't out of the question someday. But for now, I'm finally learning how to love myself. And that feels like enough.